I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. My name is Isabella Whitmore, and 2 days ago on December 26th, my son called asking if I'd paid his mortgage. The bruise on my wrist was still purple. The bandage on my temple was still fresh. And I knew sitting in my late husband's recliner with an ice pack pressed against my skull that everything had changed. "Mom," Skylar's voice cracked through the speaker. Did you pay the mortgage this month?" I should have hung up. My lawyer told me not to answer. The restraining order paperwork sat on the coffee table beside me, waiting for my signature. But my thumb moved before my brain caught up. "Why would you think I paid your mortgage?" I kept my voice steady, calm, the same tone I used when he was 7 and broke the neighbor's window with a baseball. "Because—" He exhaled hard, the sound staticky through the phone. "The payment didn't go through. Our account shows insufficient funds, and I know you usually help when we're short." Usually. That word landed like a punch. I shifted in the recliner and pain shot through my ribs. The emergency room doctor said I was lucky nothing broke. Just severe bruising, deep tissue damage, the kind that takes weeks to fade. Outside my window, a crow landed on the frozen bird bath, pecking at ice that wouldn't give. The December sun turned the frost across my lawn into diamonds. Everything looked peaceful, clean, nothing like the chaos churning in my chest. "I'm confused, Skylar." I watched the crow give up and fly away. 2 nights ago, you told me I had more money than I needed, that I was going to die alone in this house anyway. You said what I did with my money wasn't your business. The silence stretched between us like a canyon. "Mom, listen." "No, you listen." My voice stayed soft, but there was steel underneath now. Steel that wasn't there before Christmas Eve. "Your wife stole $30,000 from me. You knew about it. You helped her do it. And when I confronted you both, you shoved me to the ground and left me bleeding on my kitchen floor with a concussion." "I didn't mean to. It was an accident." "The police have photos, Skylar. The hospital has records. My lawyer has documentation of every withdrawal Amelia made from my account." I paused, letting the weight sink in. "So no, I did not pay your mortgage." "Mom, please." The desperation in his voice used to move me, used to make me reach for my checkbook, my credit card, whatever would fix things. "They're going to foreclose. We'll lose the house. Everything." "Just this once," I said, and the laugh that came out sounded foreign, sharp. "I gave you $20,000 for your down payment 7 years ago. I've covered your car payments, your credit cards, your emergencies, and you repaid me by stealing, by putting your hands on me." "I'm sorry. God, Mom, I'm so sorry." "Are you sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught?" No answer. The crow returned with another bird. They circled my yard together, looking for food in the frozen ground, finding nothing. "Let me tell you what happened 2 nights ago," I said. "Let me tell you how I got these bruises, this concussion, this new understanding of who my son really is. Then you'll understand why I won't help you, why I can't." 3 months before Christmas, I was still the woman I'd been for 75 years. Isabella Whitmore, retired elementary school teacher, widow of 5 years, mother to an only son who called every Sunday, visited every month, made me feel less alone in this big empty house my husband Bernard left behind. My Fridays belonged to book club. Margaret Sullivan hosted at her place on Maple Street, and we'd gather at 2 o'clock to discuss whatever novel someone picked. Historical fiction mostly, sometimes mysteries, never romance. We were past the age of needing happy endings spelled out for us. That particular Friday in September, we were supposed to discuss The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I'd made lemon bars my specialty, the recipe Bernard's mother gave me 40 years ago. I'd showered, dressed in my good slacks and the blue cardigan Skylar gave me for my birthday. I was ready by 1:30, sitting in my living room, purse on my lap. Then Margaret called. "Isabella, honey, I'm so sorry." Her voice was breathless with excitement and worry mixed together. "Amanda went into labor, 3 weeks early. I'm heading to the hospital now." "Oh my goodness. Is she okay?" "The doctors say everything's fine, but I need to be there. Can you call the others? Tell them book club's canceled." "Of course, go. Be with your daughter." I hung up and sat there, lemon bars on the passenger seat of my imagination, dressed with nowhere to go. The house felt too quiet, too empty. Bernard's recliner still bore the impression of his body even after 5 years. The water stain on the ceiling above it from a leak he'd promised to fix seemed to grow larger every time I looked at it, like it was spreading, taking over. I couldn't stay here, not with the afternoon stretching ahead like an empty road. So I drove, aimless at first, past the new coffee shop on Pinewood Avenue where young mothers gathered with strollers that cost more than my first car, through Riverside Park where couples walked golden retrievers in the early fall sunshine. The kind of day Bernard would have loved. We'd have gone for a drive together maybe. Found a roadside stand selling apples. Made a day of it. I turned onto 5th Street without thinking. The ATM was there outside the bank Bernard and I had used for 30 years. I needed cash for the farmer's market tomorrow. Pulled into the parking lot. Found a space near the back. That's when I saw it. The red coat. Amelia wore it everywhere. Bright crimson wool with a designer label I couldn't pronounce. I'd given it to her last Christmas because she mentioned wanting it. $800 I'd spent watching her face light up when she opened the box. The first genuine smile she'd ever given me. She was standing at the ATM, her back to me, but I'd recognize that coat anywhere. The Mercedes was parked 3 spots over the one with the dent in the rear bumper from when Skylar backed into a pole at the grocery store. I sat in my car engine running, confused. Why would Amelia be at this bank? They used First National across town, closer to their house in the suburbs. Better interest rates, Skylar had said when they opened their accounts. This bank, my bank, was 20 minutes from their place. There was no reason for her to be here. She finished her transaction, pulled something from the machine. Cash, a thick stack of it. She counted it quickly, her manicured fingers flipping through bills with practiced ease. Then she glanced around, nervous, furtive, and stuffed the money in her designer purse. I ducked down in my seat. Stupid instinct. Like I was the one doing something wrong. She walked to the Mercedes, got in, drove away. I sat there for 10 minutes, heart pounding, telling myself there was an explanation. Maybe she was getting cash for a surprise. Maybe Skylar had sent her. Maybe I was wrong about which bank they used. But something felt off, rotten. Like when you open the refrigerator and smell spoiled milk before you even see it. I went inside and asked to speak with a banker. Susan Williams came out from behind her desk, the same woman who'd helped me open my accounts after Bernard died. She'd been kind then, patient with my confusion about beneficiaries and joint ownership and terms I'd never had to understand before. Bernard handled all our money. I signed where he told me to sign. Mrs. Whitmore, Susan smiled. What can I do for you? I need to check my statements. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from underwater. My checking account, the one with emergency access. Of course, let me pull that up. She clicked through screens on her computer. The smile faded. Is everything all right? She asked. I don't know. I leaned closer, squinting at the numbers. Can you show me the last 6 months of withdrawals? That's when I saw them. Friday, September 13th, 2:17 p.m., $3,000 withdrawn. Friday, September 6th, 2:15 p.m., $3,000 withdrawn. Friday, August 30th, 2:18 p.m., $3,000 withdrawn. The list went on, and on, and on. 8 months of Fridays. Always $3,000. Always between 2:15 and 2:20 in the afternoon. Always from the ATM outside this building. $24,000. Gone. These withdrawals, I said, my mouth dry as sand. Do you have security footage? Susan's expression shifted. This wasn't a normal request. Can I ask why? Because I didn't make them. The color drained from her face. I'll get the manager. They pulled up the footage in a small office that smelled like stale coffee and carpet cleaner. I sat in a chair that was too low, staring at a computer screen, while the branch manager, a tired-looking man named David Park, clicked through files. Here, he said, September 13th, Sector 17 p.m. The video was in color, high definition, crystal clear. There was Amelia in that red coat, sliding a card into the ATM, punching in numbers, taking cash. She looked bored, like she was buying milk. September 6th, David said, clicking to the next clip. Same thing. Amelia, red coat, cash. August 30th, again. How far back do you want to go? He asked. All of it, every withdrawal. We watched 8 months of Fridays, watched my daughter-in-law steal from me in high definition. Sometimes she looked nervous, checking over her shoulder. Sometimes she was on her phone laughing at something while my money came out of the machine. Once she was wearing sunglasses that cost more than my monthly grocery bill. The Mercedes was always in the background. Skylar's car. Mrs. Whitmore, David said gently, I need to ask, did you give this woman permission to use your card? No. Did you give anyone permission? I thought about the emergency card. The one I'd given Skylar years ago, right after Bernard died. In case something happened to me, in case I needed help. I'd written the PIN on a sticky note and put it in an envelope. Only use this if it's a real emergency, I'd told him. I gave my son access, I said, for emergencies. Does she have access through your son? I don't know. But I did know, deep down in the part of me that had been making excuses for months. Years, maybe. I knew. I'm going to file a fraud report, David said. We'll send you copies of all footage and transaction records. But Mrs. Whitmore, you need to file a police report. This is theft, identity fraud. This is serious. I drove home in a daze, sat in my driveway for an hour before I could make myself go inside. When I finally did, everything looked the same but felt different, like walking through a stranger's house wearing a stranger's skin. I opened my laptop with shaking hands, clicked the email from the bank, downloaded the footage files, watched them again, and again, and again. In the kitchen, I pulled out my phone and called Skylar's number. He answered on the fourth ring. Hey, Mom. Kinda busy. What's up? The debit card I gave you for emergencies. My voice didn't shake. Strange. The one connected to my checking account. Where is it, T? A pause. In my wallet. Why? Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. What's this about? Check right now, please. I heard rustling. A drawer opening. It's here, right where it always is. Mom, seriously, what's going on? Can you read me the number? Mom, read me the number, Skylar. He did. I checked it against my statement. Same card, same number. When's the last time you used it? I asked. I don't know. 2 years ago when my transmission died. You said it was for emergencies only. Have you ever given it to Amelia? The silence stretched too long. Skylar, she needed it once, he said quietly. Last December, for Christmas shopping. Our credit cards were maxed out. I told her to just take out a little. My living room tilted. I gripped the arm of Bernard's recliner to stay upright. How much is a little? I don't know. $3,000. She said she'd pay it back right away. Did she pay it back? I assumed so. Why are you asking about this? I'll call you back. I hung up before he could respond. For 3 days, I became a different person. Not the Isabella who made lemon bars and volunteered at the library and accepted whatever scraps of affection her son and daughter-in-law threw her way. This Isabella pulled bank statements, created spreadsheets, documented everything. September through December, 6 more withdrawals. $3,000 each. Total stolen $30,000. That was my emergency fund. My surgery money. I needed a hip replacement next spring. The pain was getting worse, making it hard to sleep to walk more than a block without stopping. Insurance would cover most of it, but not all. That money was supposed to fill the gap, keep me independent, keep me from becoming a burden. And Amelia had taken it. While I was at book club talking about fictional characters' problems, while I was making my lemon bars and living my small, careful life. The anger came slowly. Then, all at once, I made a decision. Christmas Eve, I'd invite them over like always, make dinner like always, and then I'd confront them both. I needed to see their faces, needed to understand how they'd justified this to themselves, needed to give them a chance to explain. Apologize, make it right. Some part of me still hoped there was an explanation, a misunderstanding, something that would make sense of this betrayal. I was wrong. The weeks between September and Christmas passed in a strange fog. I continued my routine. Book club on Fridays, we finally discussed The Nightingale, and I barely remembered a word. Library volunteering on Wednesdays, shelving books with titles I didn't see. And Saturdays were the hardest. Every Saturday I drove to Skylar and Amelia's house in the suburbs, the house I'd helped them buy with that $20,000 down payment, and cooked elaborate dinners. Pot roast with all the fixings. Lasagna that took 6 hours to prepare. Desserts from scratch because Amelia said store-bought tasted like chemicals. I'd arrive at 4, leave at 9. 5 hours of watching them eat what I made barely looking up from their phones. 5 hours of Amelia making comments about how Bernard used to cook it differently, how her mother's version had more flavor. "It's constructive criticism," she'd say, smiling with her mouth but not her eyes. "I'm just trying to help you improve." And I'd smile back, say thank you, tell her I appreciated the feedback. But now every time I looked at her, I saw that security footage. Saw her laughing on her phone while withdrawing my money. Saw the designer watch on her wrist, Cartier she'd mentioned once. $8,000. Saw the new highlights in her hair, the Louboutin heels, the silk blouse that probably cost more than my electric bill. All of it purchased with my money. The pretending was a special kind of torture. One Saturday in early December, I was in their kitchen making homemade ravioli Amelia's request when she came in wearing a dress I hadn't seen before. Black, simple, elegant, probably $1,000. "Oh, Isabella," she said, not looking at me. She never called me Mom, never even Mother, always Isabella, like I was a coworker, not family. "I saw the cutest coat at Nordstrom yesterday, camel cashmere, on sale for only $1,200. I was thinking maybe for my birthday," my hands stilled in the pasta dough. Her birthday was in February, 3 months away. "That sounds lovely," I heard myself say. She smiled, took a glass from the cabinet, my good wine glasses, the ones I'd given them as a housewarming gift, and poured herself Chardonnay from a bottle that probably cost $60. Didn't offer me any. "You know," she continued, settling at the kitchen table, "Skylar and I were talking about taking a trip to the Maldives in February. 2 weeks. We found this amazing resort. Overwater bungalows, private beach, the works." I shaped the ravioli carefully, one by one. "That sounds wonderful. It's expensive, though. $20,000 for the 2 of us." She sipped her wine. "But we work so hard. We deserve it, right? $20,000, the exact amount I'd given them for their house." I didn't trust myself to speak. Skylar came home around 7, loosening his tie as he walked through the door. He kissed Amelia, really kissed her like I wasn't standing 3 feet away, and grabbed a beer from the fridge. "Hey, Mom." He finally looked at me. "Smells good." "Thank you. We're going to eat in the living room, though. Big game tonight." So I set up TV trays, served them dinner, cleaned up while they watched football and drank and laughed at commercials. At 9 o'clock, I gathered my things. "Thanks for dinner, Isabella," Amelia called from the couch, not getting up. Skylar walked me to the door. "You okay, Mom? You seem quiet." "Just tired," I said. He hugged me quick, distracted, and I caught a whiff of his cologne. Expensive. Designer. I'd given him a bottle for Christmas 2 years ago, and he'd looked disappointed. Said he preferred Tom Ford. This was probably Tom Ford. "Drive safe," he said, already turning back to the TV. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before starting the engine. Watched through their front window as Amelia curled against Skylar on the couch. Watched them laugh at something on the screen. They looked happy. Perfect, like a couple in a catalog. And I was the old woman who cooked their food and accepted their crumbs of affection and pretended everything was fine. Not anymore. Christmas Eve arrived cold and clear. I woke at 6, showered, dressed in the red sweater Skylar gave me 3 birthdays ago. Started cooking at 7. Turkey breast for 3, brined overnight and stuffed with herbs I grew in my kitchen window. Mashed potatoes made with heavy cream and real butter, none of that margarine nonsense. Green bean casserole using Bernard's mother's recipe. Rolls from scratch, the dough hand-kneaded and left to rise twice. Sugar cookies shaped like stars and trees decorated with frosting in red and green and gold. The bank statement sat folded in my apron pocket. I'd touched it so many times the paper had gone soft, almost like fabric. I wasn't nervous. That surprised me. I'd spent 3 months being the woman who accepted things, who explained away red flags, who convinced herself that family was supposed to feel like this, slightly painful, mostly disappointing, but binding nonetheless. That woman was gone. The one rolling out cookie dough in her kitchen was someone harder. Someone who'd spent 75 years being kind and gotten nothing but bruises to show for it. Well, I hadn't gotten the bruises yet, but they were coming. The cookies were in the oven when the doorbell rang. 4:47. They weren't supposed to arrive until 6. Through the frosted glass, I saw the Mercedes in my driveway, exhaust puffing white into the December air. I wiped flour from my hands, checked my reflection in the hall mirror, smoothed my hair. Then I opened the door wearing the smile I'd practiced. "Mom!" Skylar swept inside, bringing cold air and cologne. He kissed my cheek without looking at me. "We're early." Amelia wanted to help with dinner. Amelia glided past heels, clicking on my hardwood floors. She carried a store-bought pie still in its plastic container. First time she'd ever brought anything to contribute. Merry Christmas, Isabella. Never Mom, never even Mother. Always my first name, like we were colleagues. I closed the door and followed them to the kitchen. My heart was beating fast now, but my hands stayed steady. Wine. Amelia opened my refrigerator without asking, pulled out the Chardonnay I'd been saving for a special occasion that never seemed to come. She poured 2 glasses, one for her, one for Skylar. I got nothing. She sat at my kitchen table, Bernard's table, the one we'd bought when Skylar was a baby, sipped her wine like she owned the place. You know, Isabella, I saw the cutest coat at Nordstrom yesterday. Camel cashmere. On sale for only $1,200. I was thinking maybe for my birthday. Actually, I said, my voice cutting through her words like a knife through butter. I need to discuss something important. Skylar loosened his tie. Can it wait, Mom? We've had a long day. No, it can't. I pulled the bank statement from my pocket, unfolded it carefully, smoothing the creases on the counter. The paper crinkled in the sudden silence. The radio kept playing Christmas music. Bing Crosby singing about white Christmases and dreams. Wrong soundtrack for what was about to happen. Amelia's eyes narrowed. Just for a second. But I caught it. What's that? Skylar reached for the statement. I held it back. This is from my checking account, the one I opened after your father died, the one only you have access to, Skylar, for emergencies. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Tried to find the boy who used to bring me dandelions from the backyard, who cried when other kids got hurt at school, who'd once told me I was his favorite person in the whole world. I didn't see that boy anywhere. Someone's been withdrawing money, I continued, voice level calm. Large amounts, almost $30,000 over the past 8 months. The kitchen felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. Amelia sipped her wine like we were discussing weather. Skylar's jaw tightened. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm asking directly. I turned to Amelia. Did you take money from my account? She set her glass down with a sharp click. Excuse me. The withdrawals started 2 weeks after Skylar gave you his debit card, the same card connected to my account. My hands didn't shake anymore. Anger burned away the fear. ATM transactions. Always exactly $3,000. Always on Fridays when I'm at book club. Amelia laughed. Cold, brittle, like ice cracking. This is unbelievable. Skylar, are you hearing this? But Skylar wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the statement I'd placed on the counter, his face cycling through colors, pale to red to pale again. Mom, you're confused. His voice came out too loud, too defensive. You probably authorized these and forgot. You're getting older. Memory issues are, I'm 75, not senile. Heat crawled up my neck. I keep perfect records. I know every penny in that account. Maybe you should see a doctor. Amelia moved closer to Skylar, her hand on his arm. United front. Memory problems are common at your age. My grandmother had the same thing before. Don't you dare gaslight me. My voice came out sharp as broken glass. I saw the security footage from the ATM. That's your car, Amelia. That's you in your red coat, the one I bought you last Christmas, taking my money. The silence stretched like taffy. Even the radio seemed to pause between songs. Amelia's mask finally slipped. Her pretty face twisted into something ugly, something that had probably been there all along, hiding behind smiles and constructive criticism. You had no right to spy on me. You had no right to steal from me. Steal? She laughed again, meaner this time. You owe us that money, Isabella. After everything we've done for you, visiting every month, listening to your boring stories about dead Bernard, pretending to care about your pathetic book club. That's worth something. The words hit like physical blows. I grabbed the counter to stay upright. Get out of my house. Gladly. Amelia grabbed her purse. I'm tired of playing happy family with you anyway. You're pathetic. Clinging to money like it'll keep you warm at night when you die alone in this house. But Skylar didn't move. He stood frozen, his face a mask I didn't recognize. Mom, you need to understand. Understand what? That you let your wife rob me, that you're defending her. The house payment was due. His voice came out quiet, flat. We were going to lose everything. I told Amelia where the card was. I told her the pin. The floor tilted under my feet. You knew. We were desperate. You make 6 figures. You drive a Mercedes. You just got back from a spa weekend. My voice was rising now, getting shrill. I didn't care. You have way more than most people ever will, and you stole from your own mother. That's not your business. His voice turned cold, exactly like his father's used to when he'd been caught in a lie. You have way more money than you need. What are you saving it for? You're going to die alone in this house anyway. The words hit like a slap. How dare you? Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not in front of them. That money was for my medical bills, for the surgery I need next year, for what Amelia was back at Skylar's side, now emboldened. To hoard until you're dead, you're pathetic, Isabella. This whole martyr act is getting old. Get out. My voice shook. Both of you. Now. Skylar moved toward me, his face twisted with something between anger and guilt. You're making a huge mistake. I said get out. I grabbed the wine glass Amelia had poured my Chardonnay, the one she'd helped herself to, and threw it. Not at them. Never at them. But it shattered against the cabinet beside Skylar's head, sending white wine and glass spraying across my Christmas decorations. Across the cookies I'd spent hours making. Across everything. Everything happened fast after that. Skylar lunged forward. For a split second, maybe half a heartbeat, I thought he was leaving. Thought maybe the sound of shattering glass had shocked him back to his senses. Thought my son, my baby boy, who I'd raised to be gentle and kind, was walking away from this nightmare we'd created in my kitchen. But his hands found my shoulders instead. Found them and shoved. Hard. I'd never been pushed before. Not like this. Not with intent. Not with violence behind it. The force sent me stumbling backward, my hip cracking against the granite countertop. The countertop I'd helped them pick out for their kitchen, the one Amelia said reminded her of Italian marble. Pain exploded through my side. White hot. Shocking. My heel caught on the rug. The Santa Fe rug Bernard and I bought on our honeymoon 43 years ago, woven by an old woman who told us it would last forever. It had outlasted Bernard. It was about to outlast me. The floor rushed up fast. Too fast. My head hit the hardwood with a sickening crack that I heard from inside my skull. Sound and sensation merged into one terrible moment. The impact, the ringing, the way the world tilted sideways and wouldn't straighten. I lay there staring up at my ceiling. At the water stain Bernard had promised to fix before his heart attack took him on a Tuesday morning 5 years ago. The last thing he'd looked at, maybe. Now possibly the last thing I'd see. Blood trickled warm down my temple. Copper taste in my mouth. Hip screaming. Everything hurt in ways I didn't know were possible. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard Amelia's voice. Sharp. Angry. Not concerned. Jesus, Skylar, what did you do? Skylar's face appeared above me, swimming in and out of focus. For just a moment, one brief, flickering moment, I saw horror there. Saw my son realize what he'd done. Saw him see me, really see me lying broken on the floor he'd put me on. Then his face hardened. This is your fault, he hissed, leaning close enough that I could smell the beer on his breath. You pushed us to this. If you'd just helped us like family should, we need to leave. Amelia's face joined his cold and calculating. No horror there. Just math. Just consequences being calculated. Now, Skylar. She crouched down, and for one insane second I thought she might help me up. Instead, she grabbed her purse from where it had fallen, her face inches from mine. You're insane, you know that. Her voice was low, venomous. Accusing us of theft like some paranoid old woman. You stay away from us, Isabella. We're done with you. Their footsteps retreated. Heavy. Quick. Running from what they'd done. The front door slammed so hard a picture fell off the wall. I heard it shatter somewhere in the living room. The Mercedes engine roared to life. Tires squealed against the pavement. Then silence. Just me and the radio still playing. Silent night now. All is calm. All is bright. The smoke detector started beeping. The cookies were burning. I don't know how long I stayed on that floor. Long enough for the room to stop spinning quite so fast. Long enough to understand that my son had put his hands on me and walked away. Long enough for the blood from my temple to pool on the hardwood, sticky and warm and wrong. When I finally tried to sit up, my body screamed in protest. Every muscle, every bone, everything hurt. I crawled to the phone on the wall. Had to use the counter to pull myself up, leaving bloody handprints on the cabinet doors. My fingers shook so badly I could barely punch the numbers. 911. 911, what's your emergency? I need help. My voice cracked, broke. I've been assaulted. The dispatcher's voice went sharp, professional. Are you in immediate danger? Is your assailant still there? No, they left. I touched my head. My hand came away red, bright red, Christmas red. But I'm hurt. I'm bleeding. Help is on the way. Stay on the line with me, okay? Can you tell me your name? Isabella. Isabella Whitmore. Isabella, I need you to stay as still as possible. Don't try to move. Can you tell me what happened? I opened my mouth to answer, and the words wouldn't come. How do you say it? How do you tell a stranger that your son, your only child, the baby you nursed and raised and loved with everything you had put his hands on you and left you bleeding on your kitchen floor on Christmas Eve? My son, I finally whispered. It was my son. The paramedics arrived in 8 minutes. I know because I counted every second on the kitchen clock while the dispatcher kept talking to me, asking questions I barely heard, keeping me conscious. The young man came through the door first. Carlos, his name tag said. Maybe 28-30. Kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Carlos. This is Jean. We're going to take care of you, okay? Jean was older, 50-something with gray streaking through her pulled-back hair and the weathered face of someone who'd seen everything. She knelt beside me, gentle hands checking my pulse, examining the gash on my temple. Can you tell me where it hurts? She asked. Everywhere. It came out as a sob. My head, my hip, my ribs. Okay, we're going to get you on a backboard just as a precaution. Carlos, let's get her vitals. They worked with efficient precision. Blood pressure cuff, pen light in my eyes, questions about dizziness, nausea, vision changes. All while I lay there in my red Christmas sweater decorated with cookies I'd never serve, surrounded by broken glass and spilled wine and the ruins of the holiday I'd tried to create. Mrs. Whitmore, Jean said quietly while Carlos radioed for police backup. Can you tell me what happened? Who did this to you? My son. The words came easier this time. Still hurt like swallowing glass, but easier. And his wife. They were here for dinner. We argued. He pushed me. Jean's jaw tightened. Did you lose consciousness? I don't think so. Everything's fuzzy. That's okay. That's normal with head trauma. She finished bandaging the gash on my temple. Listen to me, Isabella. You need to go to the hospital. You likely have a concussion, and we need to make sure there's no internal bleeding. But I also need to tell you you should press charges. This is assault, domestic violence. It doesn't matter that it's family. He's my son, I said as if that explained something, as if that made it better or worse or understandable. I know. Jean's eyes were kind but firm, unflinching. I have a son too, and if he ever put his hands on me like this, I'd make sure he faced consequences. Family doesn't get a pass on violence, Mrs. Whitmore. Actually, it makes it worse. Carlos came back with the backboard. Police are en route. ETA 3 minutes. They lifted me carefully, strapped me down. The ambulance lights painted my living room in alternating red and blue, turning my Christmas tree into something garish and wrong. Through the window, I could see neighbors gathering on their lawns, phones out filming. Mrs. Chen from next door stood on her porch in her bathrobe, hand over her mouth. This was going to be all over the neighborhood by morning. The thought should have embarrassed me. Should have made me want to hide, to minimize, to explain it all away as an accident. Instead, I felt something else. Something harder. Let them see. Let everyone see what my son did. The police arrived just as the paramedics were loading me into the ambulance. 2 officers. One was a woman, Officer Martinez Young, and Latina with 3 kids based on the photos clipped to her uniform visor. The other was older, Officer Thompson, graying at the temples with the tired eyes of someone who'd worked domestic violence cases too long. Mrs. Whitmore, Martinez said, climbing into the ambulance with me. I need to ask you some questions before we go. Are you able to talk? I nodded, regretted it immediately as pain spiked through my skull. Can you tell me what happened tonight? So I told her about the theft, the confrontation, the wine glass I threw at the wall, not at them, at the wall, about Skylar's hands on my shoulders, the push, the fall, the way they left me bleeding. Martinez took notes, photographed my injuries, the gash on my temple, the bruise already blooming purple across my hip, the scrape on my elbow where I'd tried to catch myself. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm going to be straight with you," she said when I finished. "This is serious. Assault and battery, elder abuse, possibly theft charges too based on what you've told me about the financial situation. Do you want to press charges?" I looked at her notepad at my own blood on the pages. "He's my son." "That doesn't give him the right to hurt you." "I know." My voice was small. "I know that. But no buts," Thompson said from the ambulance door. He'd been quiet until now, just listening. "I've been doing this 23 years, ma'am. I've seen too many cases like yours. Family thinks love means accepting abuse. It doesn't. Love means holding people accountable when they hurt you." "What if I change my mind later?" I asked. "What if I decide not to?" "Then that's your choice," Martinez said. "But right now, while it's fresh, while we have the evidence, let us document everything. Let us build the case. You can decide later what to do with it. But if you don't do it now, you lose that option." I thought about Amelia's face, cold and calculating. About Skylar saying it was my fault. About $30,000 stolen while I made lemon bars and pretended everything was fine. "Okay," I said. "Document everything." Martinez smiled. Small but genuine. "Good. We'll meet you at the hospital." The emergency room was chaos. Christmas Eve brings out the worst in people, apparently. Drunk drivers. Families fighting. Kids who ate too many cookies and old men who tried to hang lights on roofs they had no business climbing. I waited on a gurney in a hallway for 40 minutes before a doctor could see me. Dr. Sarah Patel, according to her badge. Maybe 45, with exhausted eyes and coffee stains on her white coat. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Dr. Patel. Let's see what we're dealing with." She examined me with gentle efficiency, shined lights in my eyes, asked me to follow her finger, pressed carefully on my ribs, my hip, my head. "You have a concussion," she said finally. "Grade 2 moderate. The gash on your temple needed 6 stitches. The paramedics did a good job with the temporary bandage. Your hip has severe bruising and deep tissue damage. We'll need x-rays to rule out a fracture. Your ribs are badly bruised, but not broken. You're lucky, Mrs. Whitmore." Lucky. I'd been assaulted by my own son on Christmas Eve, and I was lucky. "I don't feel lucky," I said. "I know." She sat on the rolling stool, brought herself to my eye level. "I read the police report. I want you to know you did the right thing. Reporting it. Coming here. Getting it documented. Too many people don't." "He's my son," I said. Again, like a mantra I couldn't stop repeating. "And that makes it harder, not easier." She pulled out a tablet, started typing. "I'm going to prescribe pain medication. Strong stuff, you're going to need it for the next few days. I'm also going to refer you to a neurologist for follow-up on the concussion. And Mrs. Whitmore, I'd recommend talking to someone. A therapist. What you went through tonight is trauma." Trauma. Such a clinical word for the moment your child becomes a stranger. They admitted me overnight for observation. Concussion protocol, Dr. Patel explained. Someone needed to wake me every 2 hours to make sure I didn't slip into something worse. I called Margaret from my hospital room at midnight. "Isabella?" Her voice was groggy, confused. "What, can you come to the hospital?" I heard how small my voice sounded, how broken. I need someone." "Oh my God. Which hospital? What happened? Are you okay?" "St. Mary's, room 347. And no, I'm not okay." She showed up 30 minutes later in pajama pants and a winter coat thrown over her gray hair, uncombed glasses crooked. She took one look at me, bandaged and bruised and small in the hospital bed, and burst into tears. "Who did this to you?" "Skylar." I watched her process that. Watched her face cycle through disbelief to horror to rage. "That son of a bitch." Margaret never swore. In 30 years of friendship, I'd never heard her say anything stronger than "darn it." "Tell me everything," she said, pulling a chair close to my bed. So I did. The whole story. The theft, the confrontation, the assault. She held my hand while I talked, squeezed it tight when my voice broke, didn't interrupt even once. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "What are you going to do?" she finally asked. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." She leaned forward. "I've known you for 3 decades, Isabella Whitmore. You're the woman who organized a district-wide protest when they tried to cut art programs. You're the woman who stood up to the school board when they wanted to fire that gay teacher. You're the woman who drove 6 hours in a snowstorm to be with me when David died. You know exactly what you're going to do." "I'm scared," I whispered. "Good. Fear means you understand how serious this is." She squeezed my hand again. "But don't let it stop you from doing what's right. He's my son. And he put you in the hospital." Her voice was gentle but unyielding. "Love doesn't mean accepting abuse, honey. It means holding people accountable when they hurt you." The same words Officer Thompson had said. Maybe everyone was trying to tell me something. Margaret stayed until 3 in the morning when a nurse finally kicked her out. Promised to come back first thing in the morning. Kissed my forehead like I was the child, and she was the mother. I didn't sleep. Every 2 hours a different nurse came in to wake me anyway, check my pupils, ask me questions, make sure I knew where I was and what day it was. Between checks, I stared at the ceiling and thought about the water stain in my own house. Bernard never fixed it. Left it for me to deal with. Just like Skylar. Just like all the men in my life. Left me to clean up their messes and accept their broken promises and call it love. Not anymore. Christmas morning arrived gray and cold. Through my hospital window, I could see families in the parking lot carrying wrapped presents and balloons into the pediatric wing. Children who'd wake up in hospital beds, but at least wake up loved and safe and whole. My phone had been buzzing all night. 17 missed calls from Skylar, 12 voicemails, 43 text messages. I couldn't bring myself to look at any of them, but I listened to one voicemail, just one, at 6:47 a.m. while a nurse was taking my blood pressure. "Mom," Skylar's voice shaking. "Mom, we need to talk. I didn't mean to hurt you. You fell. It was an accident. You threw glass at me. I was defending myself. You're blowing this way out of proportion. We can work this out as a family. Just don't do anything crazy. Don't talk to the police anymore. We can handle this ourselves. Call me back. Please." I deleted it. The word that stuck with me, accident. He pushed me. I had bruises on my shoulders in the shape of his hands. Dr. Patel had photographed them. This wasn't an accident. This was a choice. And now he wanted me to pretend it didn't happen. To sweep it under the rug like I'd swept everything else for 42 years. Every disappointment. Every broken promise. Every moment where he chose Amelia over me, money over morality, comfort over doing what was right. No more. Dr. Patel discharged me at 10 a.m. with a bag full of prescriptions and a list of warning signs to watch for. Margaret picked me up, drove me home in silence that felt respectful rather than awkward. My house looked different in daylight. The shattered wine glass had been partially cleaned up, probably by the police collecting evidence. But there were still shards glinting in the corners. Blood on the floor. The cookies burned to black husks in the oven. The Christmas tree lights still on, blinking cheerfully at a scene of violence. "Let me help you clean up," Margaret said. "No," I said it firmly. "Thank you, but no. I need to see it. I need to remember." She understood, helped me to Bernard's recliner, got me settled with ice packs and pain medication, and finally left only when I promised to call if I needed anything. Alone in my house, surrounded by the evidence of what my son had done, I made phone calls. First, Fiona Reeves, the lawyer who'd handled Bernard's estate. Left a detailed voicemail outlining everything, the theft, the assault, the need for legal advice. She called back within an hour. "Isabella, Jesus Christ, are you okay?" "No, but I will be. I'm coming over. Don't make any more calls until I get there." Second, David Park, my financial advisor at the bank. Changed all my PINs. Removed Skylar as an authorized user on every account. Reported the debit card as stolen. Built a wall between him and my money. Third, Dr. Patricia Morrison, my regular physician. Made an appointment for next week to document injuries to start the paper trail that might matter if this went to court. If. Who was I kidding? When. Fiona arrived at 2 in the afternoon with a briefcase and the sharp assessing look of a woman who'd seen this before. She sat across from me, pulled out a legal pad and said, "Tell me everything." So I did. For the third time in 12 hours, I told the story. It didn't get easier. When I finished, Fiona sat back and was quiet for a long moment. Outside Christmas carolers walked down the street, their voices carrying through my walls. Deck the halls mixed with the sound of my ceiling fan and my own breathing. "Okay," Fiona finally said. "Here's where we are legally. The theft that's elder financial abuse. Felony in this state. The assault that's battery, possibly aggravated assault given your age. Both of those are criminal charges. The police can pursue them whether you want to or not based on the evidence. But it's easier with your cooperation. Testifying. Pressing charges formally. Showing the court and a potential jury that you're not protecting him. I'm not protecting him. My voice came out harder than I expected. I'm done protecting him. Good. Fiona made notes. We also have civil options. You can sue for the money back. $30,000 plus interest plus legal fees. Force repayment through the courts. Will that work? If they have assets, yes. If not, we can put liens on property. Garnish wages. Make it so they can't ignore this. She looked up. Isabella, I need to ask. How far do you want to take this? I thought about Amelia's face. Cold, calculating, calling me pathetic. I thought about Skylar's hands on my shoulders. The push, the way he left me bleeding and called it my fault. I thought about $30,000, about the hip surgery I needed, about years of making their dinners and accepting their scraps and being grateful for crumbs. All the way, I said. I want to take this all the way. Fiona smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a lawyer who'd found a worthy fight. Then let's burn it down. The next week passed in a blur of appointments and paperwork and pain. My concussion made everything fuzzy around the edges. The pain medication made me drowsy, but I pushed through. December 27th, formal police report filed. Officer Martinez came to my house, took my statement on record, photographed the crime scene, collected the bank statements and security footage. December 28th, meeting with the district attorney's office. A tired woman named Rebecca Moss, who specialized in elder abuse cases. She reviewed everything, nodded slowly, and said, "We can prosecute this. Will you testify?" "Yes." "Even against your own son. Especially against my own son." December 29th, restraining order filed. 500 feet minimum. He couldn't come to my house, my church, my book club, anywhere I regularly went. Violation meant automatic arrest. December 30th, civil suit filed. Demand for repayment of $30,000 plus 10% annual interest plus legal fees. Payment plan proposed $3,000 by January 15th, then monthly installments. Failure to comply meant criminal charges would proceed without possibility of plea deal. January 2nd, modified my will. Removed Skylar as beneficiary. Everything would go to charity, now the literacy foundation I'd volunteered with for 20 years. He'd get nothing. January 3rd, removed him from my life insurance policy. That hurt more than I expected. When Bernard died, I'd made Skylar the beneficiary because he was all I had left. Now he was nothing. Through all of it, my phone kept ringing. Skylar called 37 times the first week. I blocked his number. He started calling from other numbers. Amelia's phone numbers I didn't recognize, even pay phones. Who uses payphones anymore? I blocked all of them. The voicemails progressed from apologetic to angry to desperate. I listened to one more. Just one on January 4th because Margaret thought I should hear what he was saying. "Mom, please. You're destroying our lives. The mortgage is overdue. Our credit cards are maxed. We're going to lose everything. I know I messed up, but this is too much. You're supposed to forgive family. That's what family does. You're being cruel, vindictive. Everyone's talking about us. Our friends think we're monsters. Amelia's parents won't even speak to us. All because you can't let this go. Just, please, call me back." I deleted it. The word that stuck, cruel. I was cruel for holding him accountable, for expecting him to face consequences, for refusing to enable his theft and excuse his violence. Not once did he say he was sorry for pushing me, for leaving me bleeding, for stealing $30,000. He was sorry he got caught. Sorry there were consequences. Sorry his perfect life was falling apart. Not sorry for what he did. There's a difference. A crucial difference. On January 10th, I got a knock on my door. I'd been expecting it. The deadline for signing the payment plan was today. Either they signed and agreed to pay me back, or Fiona filed the criminal charges and they'd be facing prison time. Through the peephole, I saw Skylar standing on my porch, alone, looking smaller somehow. He'd lost weight. His suit, one of the expensive ones he wore to his finance job, hung loose on his frame. He knocked again. "Mom, I know you're in there. Please, I just want to talk." I didn't answer. "I'm sorry," he said through the door. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I was desperate and stupid, and I made the worst decision of my life. But you're my mom. You raised me better than this. I know that. And I'm begging you, please don't do this. Please don't destroy your own son." I stood 5 feet from the door, ice pack pressed against my hip, which still ached when it rained. Said nothing. "Mom, I brought the paperwork. The payment plan. I'll sign it. I'll pay back every cent. Just please, can we talk? Can I see you, make sure you're okay?" My hand moved toward the doorknob. Muscle memory. Maternal instinct. 42 years of opening doors for my son. Then I remembered his hands on my shoulders. The push. The crack of my head hitting the floor. The way he left me there. I called the police instead. "This is Isabella Whitmore at 847 Maple Street. There's someone violating my restraining order. He's on my property. I need an officer." Through the door, I heard Skylar suck in his breath. "Mom, did you called the cops on me?" "You have 5 minutes to leave before they arrive," I said to the wood between us. "If you want to sign the paperwork, give it to Fiona. If you don't, the criminal charges will be filed by close of business today. I'm your son, and I'm your mother. You put me in the hospital. Now leave my property before you go to jail." I heard him walk away. Heard his car, not the Mercedes anymore. Something cheaper with a rattling engine, start up and drive off. Officer Martinez arrived 7 minutes later. "Did he leave?" she asked. "Yes." "Did he threaten you? Try to enter?" "No. He just wanted to talk." She made notes. "That's still a violation. Do you want to press charges for that too?" I thought about it. Thought about Skylar in handcuffs. Thought about how that would look, how it would feel. "No," I said. "Not this time, but document it, in case there's a next time." Smart. She handed me her card. I already had 3 of them, but I took this one too. "Call any time, Mrs. Whitmore. Day or night. You're doing the right thing." Everyone kept telling me that. Doing the right thing. Standing up for myself. Holding him accountable. Why did it feel like dying? On January 15th, the deadline, Fiona called me at 4:47 p.m. "They signed," she said. "Payment plan accepted. First installment of $3,000 is due today. I told Skylar's lawyer to have it here by 5 or we're filing charges. Will they pay? We'll see in 13 minutes. I sat by the phone watching the clock. 4:48, 4:49, 4:50. At 4:52, Fiona called back. "No payment." My chest tightened. "So we file charges." "So we file charges." I heard papers rustling. "Isabella, are you sure this is your last chance to back out? Once I submit these to the DA, it's out of your hands. The state prosecutes. This goes to trial. Your son could go to prison." Could, not would, but could. I thought about the security footage. Amelia laughing while stealing my money. I thought about Christmas Eve. The wine glass shattering. Skylar's hands. The floor coming up to meet me. The taste of blood. I thought about Margaret's words. Love doesn't mean accepting abuse. It means holding people accountable when they hurt you. "File the charges," I said. "Okay." Fiona's voice was gentle. "I'll call you when it's done." She called back at 5:23 p.m. "It's done. The DA's office has everything. They'll issue a warrant for arrest tomorrow morning. Both Skylar and Amelia, she's being charged as an accessory, and for the theft directly. Both of them. Both of them." I hung up and sat in Bernard's recliner looking out at my garden. January had killed everything. The rose bushes were bare, stick-thin. The vegetable beds were frozen solid. Even the birds had stopped coming to the feeder. Everything was dead or dying or waiting for spring. I felt the same way. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I hope you're happy. You just destroyed your own son's life. I hope it was worth it. Amelia." I blocked the number and turned off my phone. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky turned that particular shade of winter pink that Bernard used to love. We'd stand at this window together, his arm around my waist, and watch the light fade. He'd kiss my temple, the same spot where I now had 6 stitches, and say, "Another day done, Bella." He called me Bella. No one else ever did. I missed him. Missed the man I thought he was anyway. The man who would have been furious if he knew how Skylar turned out. Who would have stood up for me. Or would he? Bernard had his own way of avoiding problems. Of drinking too much and working too late and leaving me to handle the hard stuff with Skylar. The discipline. The tough conversations. The moments when our son needed a father and got an absence instead. Maybe this was always coming. Maybe I'd raised Skylar to take and take and take because I never taught him any differently. Never showed him that love had limits, that generosity had boundaries, that you couldn't just use people up and expect them to smile and say thank you. Maybe this was as much my fault as his. No, I pushed that thought away. This was a lie abusers told their victims, that somehow you deserved it, that you brought it on yourself, that if you'd just been better, kinder, more giving, they wouldn't have had to hurt you. Skylar made choices. Amelia made choices. They chose to steal, chose to lie, chose violence, and I was choosing not to accept it anymore. The sky faded from pink to purple to black. I sat in the dark, didn't bother turning on lights. Just sat with my pain medication and my ice pack and my bruises that were finally starting to fade from purple to that sickly yellow-green. Healing looked ugly before it looked better. Margaret had told me that. She'd lost her husband David to cancer 7 years ago, and I'd sat with her through the worst of it. Watched her rage and grieve, and slowly, painfully put herself back together. "You don't get over it," she'd said once, months after the funeral. "You just learn to carry it differently." I was learning to carry this differently. The weight of my son's betrayal, the burden of doing what was right even when it hurt, the knowledge that loving someone didn't mean accepting their abuse. My phone buzzed again. I'd forgotten to turn it off completely. Patricia Morrison, my doctor, the one I'd seen for the follow-up. "Thinking of you, Isabella. How are you holding up? Need anything?" I texted back. "I'm okay, thank you for checking." Coffee Thursday, same place as usual. We'd started having coffee every Thursday after my appointments turned into something more like friendship. She was 62, widowed, sharp-witted, and didn't take any nonsense from anyone. "I'd like that," I typed. "Good. 10 a.m. I'll bring muffins." Small kindnesses. That's what I needed now. Small kindnesses from people who actually cared, who showed up, who didn't need me to be useful or convenient or silent. I turned off the phone for real this time. Tomorrow, Skylar would be arrested. Tomorrow, this would be real in a way it hadn't been yet. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and know I'd put my own son in handcuffs. And somehow I'd have to live with that. But tonight, I just sat in the dark and let myself feel everything. The pain, the grief, the anger, the relief. All of it mixed together in a way that didn't make sense and maybe never would. Outside, a crow landed on my bird feeder. Just one. It pecked around, found nothing I hadn't filled it in weeks, and flew away. But it would come back. They always did. Persistent creatures. Survivors. I'd be one too. The call came at 7:34 a.m. on January 16th. I was in my kitchen making oatmeal, the steel-cut kind that takes 40 minutes because I had nothing but time now, when my phone rang. Officer Martinez. "Mrs. Whitmore, I wanted to let you know before you see it on the news. We arrested Skylar Whitmore and Amelia Whitmore this morning at 6:15 a.m. Both are currently being processed at the county jail. Bail hearing is set for tomorrow at 9 a.m. I gripped the counter. The oatmeal bubbled on the stove, forgotten. Did they resist?" "No, ma'am. Your son was cooperative. Mrs. Amelia Whitmore was less so, but no physical resistance. I thought you'd want to know it went smoothly." Smoothly. My son being arrested went smoothly. Thank you for telling me. One more thing. There are reporters outside the jail. This story, it's getting attention. Elder abuse by family members, especially financial abuse, it resonates with people. You might want to prepare for media interest. I don't want to talk to reporters. You don't have to, but they might show up at your house. Just be prepared. She was right. By 10 a.m., there were 3 news vans parked on my street. By noon 7, reporters knocked on my door every 20 minutes, shouted questions through my mail slot. "Mrs. Whitmore, how do you feel about your son's arrest? Do you regret pressing charges? What message do you have for other elder abuse victims?" I didn't answer, kept my curtains drawn. Let them camp on my lawn like vultures. Margaret came over through the back fence, brought groceries and indignation. "Those parasites," she muttered, unpacking milk and bread. "I told one of them to get off my lawn when he tried to interview me. Had the nerve to ask if I thought you were being vindictive." "What did you say?" "I said Isabella Whitmore is the kindest woman I know, and if she pressed charges, her son damn well deserved it." Margaret slammed the refrigerator door. "Then I threatened to call my lawyer son-in-law." He left. I smiled despite everything. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm furious on your behalf. She sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Amelia had sipped my wine and called me pathetic 6 weeks ago. How are you really doing? I don't know. I poured us coffee. My hands were steadier now. The trembling had stopped around day 3 after the assault. I keep waiting to feel guilty, to regret this, but I just feel numb. Numb is okay. Numb is your brain protecting you from feeling everything all at once. Margaret had done therapy after David died. New things about grief and trauma I was only beginning to learn. Give yourself permission to feel whatever you feel, or don't feel. There's no right way to do this. The oatmeal had burned on the stove. I scraped it into the trash, started over. The bail hearing is tomorrow, I said. Are you going? No. Fiona said I don't have to, that it's better if I don't might look like I'm trying to influence the judge. Good. Let the lawyers handle it. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Skylar in an orange jumpsuit. Amelia's perfectly manicured hands in cuffs. Both of them sitting in cells, finally facing consequences for what they'd done. I should have felt satisfied. Vindicated. Instead, I felt old. Tired. Like I'd aged 20 years in the 6 weeks since Christmas Eve. The bail hearing happened without me. Fiona called at 11:47 a.m. with the results. Bail set at $50,000 each, 10% to post, so they need $5,000 per person to get out. Will they make it? Unknown. Skylar's parents are deceased. Sorry, I know that's you, and Amelia's father apparently disowned her this morning. Called the DA's office and said, and I quote, she made her bed, she can lie in it. I'd met Amelia's father once, Robert Henderson. Gruff, former military, the kind of man who believed in personal responsibility and hard consequences. He'd never approved of Skylar, thought he was soft-spoiled. Turned out he was right. What happens if they can't make bail? They stay in jail until trial. Could be 3 months. Could be 6. System's backed up. Good, I said, then felt immediately guilty for saying it. Then angry at myself for feeling guilty. This was exhausting. Isabella, Fiona said gently, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get worse before it gets better. The trial will be hard. Really hard. You'll have to testify. Look at Skylar in court. Recount what he did in front of strangers. It's traumatic. I know. Do you? Because I've seen strong people crumble on the stand when it's family. The defense will paint you as vindictive, confused, maybe even senile. They'll attack your character, your memory, your motives. Let them try. My voice came out harder than I expected. I have evidence. Security footage, medical records, bank statements, police reports. Let them try to make me look like the villain. Fiona was quiet for a moment. Okay, just wanted to make sure you understood. I understand perfectly. My son stole from me and put me in the hospital. Now he gets to face what that means. After we hung up, I sat at my table with cold coffee and thought about Skylar at 7 years old. The time he broke the neighbor's window playing baseball and cried for an hour because he knew he'd disappointed me. I'd made him apologize, made him do chores to pay for the replacement, made him understand that actions had consequences. When had that boy become the man who could push his mother and walk away? The doorbell rang. Another reporter, probably. I ignored it. It rang again, and again, and again. Persistent. I looked through the peephole and saw a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-50s professional clothes, kind face. Not holding a microphone or camera. I cracked the door open, chain still attached. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm Detective Sarah Walsh. I work elder abuse cases for the state. May I come in? I promise I'm not a reporter. She showed me credentials. Real credentials. I let her in. Detective Walsh sat in Bernard's old recliner, the one where I'd spent so many hours these past weeks, and pulled out a notebook. I want you to know that your case is being taken very seriously. We don't often see victims willing to prosecute family members. It takes courage. It takes desperation, I corrected. If I had any other choice. But you don't. That's the point. She leaned forward. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm going to be direct with you. Your case is strong. The evidence is overwhelming, but I need to prepare you for what's coming. Your son's lawyer, Thomas Brennan, is good. Really good. He specializes in defending white-collar criminals and making juries sympathize with them. How sound? By making you look like the problem. You're bitter about being old. You're confused. You're lonely and lashing out. You're weaponizing the legal system because you're angry that your son has his own life. She said it clinically like a doctor describing symptoms. None of it's true, but juries are unpredictable, especially when it's family. What do I do? Tell the truth. Stay calm. Don't let them bait you into looking emotional or vindictive. Be the woman you are, a retired teacher, a widow, a mother who gave everything and got betrayed for it. She stood, handed me her card. And Mrs. Whitmore, I believe you. I've seen hundreds of these cases. I know what real abuse looks like. You're doing the right thing. Everyone kept saying that. Doing the right thing. Why did the right thing feel like drowning? February arrived cold and bitter. The reporters eventually left when I refused to give them anything. The story ran its cycle in the news, local son arrested for assaulting elderly mother, and then faded as newer tragedies took its place. But my phone kept buzzing with unknown numbers, text messages from people I'd never met. You're destroying your son's life over money. Shame on you. Family should forgive. You're going to regret this. I hope you die alone, you vindictive old bitch. I blocked them all. Margaret wanted me to report them to the police. I was tired of police, tired of lawyers, tired of everything. The only bright spot was my Thursdays with Patricia. Coffee at the bakery on Elm Street, muffins neither of us needed, but ate anyway, conversations that had nothing to do with Skylar or trials or trauma. Tell me about your students, Patricia said one Thursday in early February. The ones you remember. So I did. Told her about Emma Rodriguez, who couldn't read in 3rd grade and graduated valedictorian of her high school. About Marcus Chen, who drew the most beautiful pictures, but was failing math until I figured out he learned visually. About 32 years of teaching of small moments that added up to something meaningful. You changed lives, Patricia said. I tried. You did. She squeezed my hand. And you're still doing it. Every elder abuse victim who sees your story and finds courage to speak up, that's you. You're still teaching. I hadn't thought about it that way. Hadn't thought past my own pain to see the bigger picture. Thank you, I said. For what? For reminding me who I am. That night I did something I hadn't done since Christmas Eve. I went into Skylar's old bedroom. I'd left it mostly unchanged since he moved out 15 years ago. His high school trophies, 2nd place in the science fair participation medal in track. His debate team photo where he stood in the back row already taller than me. His college acceptance letter to Penn State framed because Bernard had been so proud. I looked at all of it and tried to find the moment where we lost him. Where the boy who brought me dandelions became the man who pushed me to the floor. Was it Bernard's death Skylar had been 37, established in his career, married to Amelia for 2 years. He'd cried at the funeral, but then thrown himself into work. Avoided grieving. Avoided talking about it. Maybe that's when it started the emotional distance that made it easier to see me as an ATM instead of his mother. Or was it earlier, the moment he met Amelia at that finance conference and fell for someone who valued money over everything else? She'd grown up poor, she'd told me once. Watched her father lose everything in the 2008 crash. She'd sworn she'd never be poor again, never be vulnerable. So she'd become hard. And she'd made my son hard too. Or maybe, and this was the thought that haunted me at 2 a.m. when the pain medication wore off, maybe I'd raised him this way. Giving him everything he wanted. Smoothing every rough path. Teaching him that mom would always be there to fix things, pay for things, make things easier. I'd thought I was loving him. Maybe I was just enabling him. I closed the door to his room, decided I'd turn it into a craft space. Something for me, something new. The past was done. Time to build something different. March brought the first signs of spring and the trial date September 12th. 7 months away. 7 months of waiting, wondering, preparing. Fiona filed a motion for earlier trial date, arguing that the delay was harmful to an elderly victim. Denied. The court was backed up. We'd wait our turn. In the meantime, I had my hip surgery. Dr. Patricia Morrison, my coffee friend who was also a surgeon, I'd learned performed it herself at St. Mary's, the same hospital where I'd spent Christmas night. Different circumstances this time. You're going to be fine, she said before they put me under. And when you wake up, you'll be able to walk without pain for the first time in 2 years. She was right. The surgery took 3 hours. Recovery was brutal. 6 weeks of physical therapy, learning to walk again, building strength in muscles that had atrophied from favoring my bad hip. But by late April, I was walking 2 miles a day. No pain, no limping. Just movement easy and natural the way it used to be. "Look at you," Margaret said, watching me stride through the park without stopping. "Like a new woman. I feel like a new woman." It was true. The physical healing mirrored something deeper. Something internal, shifting and mending and growing strong again. I started taking a watercolor class at the community center. Tuesday mornings with 6 other women my age painting still lifes of fruit bowls and flower arrangements. I was terrible at it. Loved every second. I rejoined my book club. We'd moved to Thursday evenings to accommodate everyone's schedules, and Margaret hosted at her place because my house still felt too heavy with memories. We read Educated by Tara Westover, a memoir about escaping an abusive family. The parallels weren't lost on anyone. "How are you doing?" asked Susan Park, the youngest member of our group at 63. Really, we were sitting in Margaret's living room, wine glasses in hand, book discussion finished. Just women being honest with each other. "I'm surviving," I said. "Some days better than others." "Have you heard from Skylar?" "No, the restraining order prevents contact. His lawyer tried to get it modified so he could call me." "Denied." "Good," said Dorothy Mitchell, 78 and fierce. Her daughter had stolen from her 10 years ago. Dorothy had cut her off completely, never looked back. "He doesn't deserve access to you. He's still my son. And that makes what he did worse, not better." Dorothy's voice was firm. "You don't owe him forgiveness just because you gave birth to him. You don't owe him anything." The other women murmured agreement. These women, ranging from 63 to 81, all had stories. Daughters who only called when they needed money. Sons who put parents in nursing homes and forgot them. Families that took and called it love. "My daughter hasn't spoken to me in 3 years, Susan said quietly, because I refused to co-sign on a loan she couldn't afford. 3 years of silence because I wouldn't enable her bad decisions. My son moved to California and never visits," added Margaret. "Says he's too busy, but he has time to post vacation photos on Facebook." We sat with that for a moment, the collective weight of maternal disappointment. "When did we become disposable?" I asked. "When we stopped being useful," Dorothy said. "When we couldn't give anymore. That's when they showed us who they really were." "But we're not disposable," Margaret said firmly. "We're right here. We have each other. We have lives that matter. We don't need ungrateful children to validate our existence." She was right. I looked around the room at these women who'd survived their own betrayals and disappointments and felt less alone than I had in months. Maybe that was the gift in all this pain, finding out who really showed up, who really cared. It wasn't my son, but it was these women, and Patricia, and Officer Martinez, who still checked on me monthly, and Fiona, who called every week with updates and encouragement. I had a community, a real one, not based on obligation or blood, but on choice and genuine care. That was worth more than any family that came with conditions attached. May arrived with warmth and the preliminary hearing. Not the trial yet, just a hearing to determine if there was enough evidence to proceed. I sat in the courtroom for the first time. Fiona beside me, Patricia on my other side for moral support. The room was smaller than I expected. Older. Wood paneling and fluorescent lights and the smell of old paper and disappointment. Skylar was brought in wearing a suit, not orange jumpsuit, thank God. He'd made bail eventually. Amelia's father had relented, paid for both of them with conditions. They'd moved in with him. Separated according to the courthouse gossip Margaret's daughter-in-law had overheard from a paralegal. Skylar looked thinner, older. There were shadows under his eyes I'd never seen before. He scanned the courtroom and his eyes landed on me. I looked right back. Didn't flinch. Didn't look away. He did. Turned back to his lawyer, Thomas Brennan, who looked exactly like Detective Walsh had described expensive suit. Practiced charm, the kind of man who could make you doubt your own memory. Amelia sat 3 rows behind Skylar. She'd gained weight. Her designer clothes didn't fit quite right. Her hair needed touching up roots, showing gray. She stared at me with pure hatred. I stared back with nothing. Just emptiness. She'd stopped mattering to me weeks ago. The judge entered Patricia Okafor, a black woman in her 60s with intelligent eyes and no-nonsense demeanor. I liked her immediately. "This is a preliminary hearing for the state versus Skylar Whitmore and Amelia Whitmore," she began. "We're here to determine if sufficient evidence exists to proceed to trial. Let's hear opening statements. The prosecutor, Rebecca Moss, the tired woman from the DA's office, stood up, laid out the case clearly, methodically. The theft, the security footage, the assault, the medical records, the police reports. Then Thomas Brennan stood up. Your Honor, this is a tragic case of family miscommunication being weaponized through the legal system. Mrs. Isabella Whitmore is a 75-year-old widow who lives alone. She's lonely, confused, and angry that her son has moved on with his life. The so-called theft was authorized use of a shared account. It wasn't shared, I said loudly. Mrs. Whitmore, Judge Okafor said firmly but not unkindly, you'll have your chance to testify. Please remain silent unless called upon. I nodded, bit my tongue. Brennan continued. The assault, as the defense will show, was accidental. Mr. Whitmore was defending himself when Mrs. Whitmore threw a wine glass in his direction. She fell. It was tragic, but not criminal. I gripped the armrest of my chair so hard my knuckles went white. Patricia put her hand over mine. The hearing lasted 3 hours. They called Susan Williams from the bank to testify about the withdrawals. She brought the security footage, played it in court. There was Amelia, clear as day, taking my money, sometimes laughing, sometimes bored, always stealing. They called Dr. Patel, who treated me Christmas Eve. She showed photos of my injuries, explained concussion protocols, stated clearly that my injuries were consistent with assault, not accidental fall. They called Officer Martinez. She described the scene, the blood, the broken glass, the way I'd crawled to the phone to call for help. Through it all, Schuyler sat stone-faced. Amelia dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue. Then they called me. I walked to the witness stand on steady legs, placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Rebecca Moss asked me to tell my story, so I did. I told them about Bernard dying, about giving Schuyler the emergency card, about finding Amelia at the ATM, about 8 months of theft while I made lemon bars and pretended everything was fine, about Christmas Eve, the confrontation, the push, the fall, the way they left me bleeding. My voice didn't shake. My hands stayed steady. I looked at the judge, not at Schuyler, and told the truth as clearly as I knew how. Then Brennan cross-examined me. Mrs. Whitmore, you're 75 years old, correct? Yes. And you live alone? Yes. Your husband passed away 5 years ago? Yes. Must be lonely. Big house. No family nearby. Objection, Rebecca Moss said. Relevance. I'm establishing Mrs. Whitmore's state of mind, Your Honor. I'll allow it, for now. Brennan smiled. Mrs. Whitmore, isn't it true that you wanted your son to visit more often? Yes, of course, he's my son. And when he didn't visit as often as you wanted, you felt angry, resentful. I felt disappointed. Disappointed enough to accuse him of theft. I didn't accuse him of anything. The security footage shows someone who looks like Mrs. Amelia Whitmore using a card that your son had authorized access to, a card you gave him, for emergencies. I gave him the card, not her. But you didn't specify that in writing. Did you? No documentation that says only Schuyler can use this card. Just a verbal understanding between mother and son. I felt the trap closing. It was understood. By you, but perhaps not by them. Perhaps they thought reasonably that a married couple could share financial resources, especially in an emergency. $30,000 over 8 months isn't an emergency. Maybe not to you, Mrs. Whitmore, but you're financially comfortable, aren't you? You own your home outright. You have Bernard's pension, Social Security, savings. Maybe you don't understand what it's like to struggle, to have bills pile up, to need help. They make over $200,000 a year. Do they? Brennan pulled out a document. Because Mr. Whitmore's salary is actually $120,000, and Mrs. Whitmore lost her job in November, so their household income dropped significantly right around the time you noticed the withdrawals slowing down. Interesting timing. I hadn't known that. Amelia lost her job. And the assault, Brennan continued. You threw a glass at my client, correct? No, at the wall, not at him, but in his direction, while screaming at him, creating a threatening environment. I wasn't threatening. You weren't. A 75-year-old woman throwing glass in anger isn't threatening. He turned to the judge. My client raised his hands to protect himself. Mrs. Whitmore fell. It was an accident. A tragic accident, but not assault. He pushed me, I said. My voice was rising. I couldn't help it. He put his hands on my shoulders and shoved me backward. I have bruises in the shape of his hands. Or bruises from hitting the counter, from the fall. Dr. Patel couldn't definitively say those bruises came from hands versus other impacts, could she? He was twisting everything, making it sound reasonable, making me sound vindictive and confused and wrong. I know what happened, I said. I was there. Yes, you were. And you were also angry and hurt, and maybe not thinking clearly. Maybe your memory of that night is colored by those emotions. Maybe objection, Rebecca Moss stood up, badgering the witness. Sustained. Mr. Brennan asked your questions without editorializing. But the damage was done. He'd planted doubt, made it seem possible that I was a lonely old woman weaponizing the legal system because my feelings were hurt. When I stepped down, my legs shook. Patricia helped me back to my seat. You did great, she whispered. I didn't feel great. I felt shredded. Judge Okafor called for a 30-minute recess. Then we'd hear her decision. I went to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, stared at myself in the mirror. I looked old. Really old. When had that happened? When had I become this woman with paper-thin skin and age spots and lines carved deep by disappointment? Margaret came in, found me gripping the sink. That lawyer is a snake, she said. He's good at his job. He's good at lying. There's a difference. She handed me a paper towel. But you held your own. You told the truth. That's all you can do. We went back to the courtroom. Judge Okafor was already seated. I've reviewed the evidence presented today, she said. The security footage clearly shows Mrs. Amelia Whitmore making unauthorized withdrawals from Mrs. Isabella Whitmore's account over an extended period. The medical evidence clearly shows injuries consistent with assault. The police reports document a credible victim statement made immediately after the incident. My heart started beating faster. However, she continued, and my heart sank. The defense has raised questions about authorization, about accident versus intent, about the circumstances surrounding the incident. These are questions for a jury to decide, not for me to determine at a preliminary hearing. No, 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 no. Therefore, I find sufficient evidence exists to proceed to trial on all counts. Elder financial abuse, theft, assault. Both defendants will remain out on bail with all previous conditions intact. Trial date is set for September 12th. We're adjourned. The gavel came down. I'd won. We were going to trial. The evidence was enough. So why did I feel like I'd lost? The months between May and September passed in a strange, suspended animation. The trial loomed like a storm on the horizon, inevitable, terrifying, beyond my control. I filled my days with small things. My garden, book club, coffee with Patricia, watercolor class where I was finally producing paintings that looked like actual objects instead of colorful blobs. I turned Skylar's old bedroom into a craft room, painted the walls a soft yellow, put in better lighting, bought supplies, canvases, paints, and easel, created a space that was mine. Margaret helped me box up Skylar's things, the trophies, the photos, the acceptance letters. All of it went into the attic. Are you sure? She asked, holding his debate team photo. I'm sure. That boy doesn't exist anymore, if he ever did. We sealed the boxes with packing tape, like sealing a tomb, burying the past so I could live in the present. In June, I got a letter. Not from Skylar, the restraining order prevented that, but from his lawyer. Mrs. Whitmore, my client wishes to extend an offer of settlement. He will repay the full $30,000 plus 10% interest over the next 3 years. In exchange, you drop all criminal charges and the restraining order. This is a generous offer. It gives you your money back and allows your son to avoid prison. It allows your family to heal. Please consider it carefully. Regards, Thomas Brennan Esquire. I read it 3 times, then called Fiona. What do you think? I asked. I think it's a good offer financially. You'd get your money back. But Isabella, you need to understand, if you take this, Skylar faces no real consequences. A payment plan he'll probably default on. No criminal record. Nothing to stop him from doing this to someone else. What would you do? Long pause. I'd go to trial. But I'm not you. I'm not the one who has to live with whatever decision you make. I thought about it for 3 days. Wrote down pros and cons. Asked Patricia. Asked Margaret. Asked Dorothy from book club who'd cut off her own daughter. Everyone said the same thing. It was my choice, my life, my decision to make. On the fourth day, I called Fiona back. Tell them no. We're going to trial. Are you sure? I'm sure. This isn't about the money. It never was. It's about accountability. It's about looking at my son and making him hear what he did. It's about making sure he can't do this to anyone else. Okay, I'll let them know. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Mom, Skylar's voice, shaking, desperate. Mom, please don't do this. I'm begging you. I'll lose everything. My job, my reputation, my future. Please. How did you get this number? It doesn't matter. Just listen. You're violating the restraining order by calling me. I don't care, Mom. I'm your son. You can't do this to me. You can't send me to prison. I didn't send you anywhere, Skylar. You did this to yourself. By making one mistake, and you're going to destroy my entire life. One mistake. My voice was ice. You stole from me for 8 months. You put me in the hospital. You left me bleeding on my floor. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern of choices. And now you face the consequences. I'll kill myself, he said. Flat. Empty. If you go through with this trial, I'll kill myself. You'll have killed your own son. The words hit like a physical blow, but something in his tone, the manipulation, the theatricality felt familiar. This was Skylar at 7 threatening to hold his breath until I let him have dessert before dinner. This was a tantrum in adult clothing. Then I'll call the police and have you put on suicide watch, I said calmly. But I won't be blackmailed, and I won't be manipulated. Not anymore. I hung up, blocked the number, called Officer Martinez and reported the restraining order violation. He was arrested again that night, released the next morning. His bail was revoked. He'd spend the time until trial in jail. I felt nothing. That scared me more than anything else. That I could hear my son threaten suicide and feel nothing but tired. What kind of mother was I? The answer came from Patricia over coffee 2 days later. You're a mother who survived, she said. You're a mother who chose herself. There's nothing wrong with that. But he's my son, and you're a person. A whole person with value and worth beyond being his mother. He tried to erase that. He tried to reduce you to just a source of money and convenience. You refused to be erased. That's not wrong, Isabella. That's survival. I cried then. For the first time since Christmas Eve, I really cried. Not pretty tears, ugly, snotty, gasping sobs that emptied something out of me that had been festering for months. Patricia held me. Didn't try to fix it. Didn't tell me it would be okay. Just held me and let me break. When I finally stopped, I felt lighter. Emptier, but lighter. Thank you, I said. For what? For seeing me, really seeing me, not just as someone's mother, not just as a victim, as a person. You're welcome. But Isabella, you always were a person. You just forgot for a while. September 12th arrived with unseasonable heat. The trial was set to begin at 9 a.m. in courtroom 6 of the county courthouse. I wore the blue suit I'd bought for Bernard's funeral. It still fit. I'd lost weight, stress, and grief. We'll do that, but the suit still fit. Fiona met me outside the courthouse at 8:30. Ready? She asked. No, but let's do it anyway. The courtroom was packed. More people than the preliminary hearing. I recognized some faces, Margaret, Patricia, Dorothy, and Susan from book club Officer Martinez in the back row. Others I didn't know. Reporters, curious onlookers, people who'd read about the case and came to watch. Skylar was already seated at the defense table with Thomas Brennan. He looked terrible. Jail had aged him. His suit was wrinkled. His hair needed cutting. He didn't look at me when I walked in. Amelia sat at a separate defense table with her own lawyer, a young woman named Jennifer Cross, who looked fresh out of law school and terrified. Amelia had been offered a plea deal to testify against Skylar serve 6 months probation. She'd refused. Loyalty or stupidity, I couldn't tell which. Judge Okafor entered. We all stood. Please be seated. We're here for the trial of the state versus Skylar Whitmore and Amelia Whitmore. Jury selection will begin now. It took 2 days to select a jury. 12 people who would decide my son's fate. 7 women, 5 men. Ages ranging from 26 to 74. Mix of races, backgrounds, occupations. Thomas Brennan tried to exclude anyone over 65, didn't want jurors who might sympathize with me. Rebecca Moss fought him on it. They compromised 2 jurors over 65 stayed. On September 14th, the trial began for real. Rebecca Moss gave her opening statement first. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about betrayal, about a son who stole from his elderly mother and then assaulted her when she dared to confront him. The evidence will show clearly and without doubt that Skylar Whitmore and Amelia Whitmore systematically stole $30,000 over 8 months. When Isabella Whitmore discovered the theft, Skylar Whitmore physically attacked her, leaving her with a concussion and severe injuries. This is not a family dispute. This is elder abuse. This is theft. This is assault. And the evidence will prove it beyond reasonable doubt. She sat down. Thomas Brennan stood up. He was good. I had to give him that. He painted a picture of a lonely widow, angry that her son had moved on with his life. A woman who couldn't accept that the money she'd given him access to was used for legitimate emergencies. A woman who escalated a family disagreement into violence and then blamed her son for defending himself. Ask yourselves, he said, looking each juror in the eye, is this really criminal, or is this a family tragedy being weaponized through the legal system? The first week of trial was a blur of witnesses and evidence. They called Susan Williams again, showed the security footage again. Amelia stealing clear as day. They called Dr. Patel, showed my injuries, explained concussions, bruising patterns, what assault looks like on a body. They called Officer Martinez. She described the scene Christmas Eve, the blood, the broken glass. My voice on the 911 call, they played it in court. I heard myself saying, I've been assaulted. My son did this. Heard my own broken voice and wanted to die. They called the paramedics Carlos and Jean. They testified about finding me on the floor, about my injuries, about what I'd told them. Every witness built the case brick by brick. Then on day 5, they called me. I walked to the stand, placed my hand on the Bible again, swore to tell the truth again. This time I looked at Skylar while I testified, made him see me, made him hear what he'd done in my own words. I told them everything. The whole story from start to finish. 8 months of theft, Christmas Eve confrontation, the push, the fall, the abandonment. When I described hitting the floor, my voice finally broke. I lay there bleeding, I said, and I could hear them leaving, hear the door slam, hear the car drive away, and I thought, this is how I die, alone on my kitchen floor on Christmas Eve, killed by my own son. Several jurors were crying. Judge Okafor handed me a tissue. But you didn't die, Rebecca Moss said gently. No, I didn't die. I crawled to the phone. I called for help. I survived. And now you're here. And now I'm here. Thomas Brennan's cross-examination was brutal. He tried everything. Made me admit I'd thrown the glass. Made me admit I'd yelled. Made me admit I wanted Skylar to visit more often. Tried to paint me as desperate, lonely, vindictive, but I held steady. Mr. Brennan, I finally said, cutting through one of his questions, you can try to make me look crazy. You can try to make me look bitter. But nothing you say changes the facts. Your client stole from me. Your client pushed me. Your client left me bleeding. Those are facts, not emotions. Facts. Several jurors nodded. Brennan sat down. The trial continued for 2 more weeks. Skylar testified, claimed everything was an accident, a misunderstanding that he was defending himself. The jury looked skeptical. Amelia testified, claimed she thought she had permission to use the card that Skylar told her I'd said it was okay. The security footage of her laughing while withdrawing money destroyed her credibility. On September 29th, closing arguments. Rebecca Moss was powerful. Don't let charm and excuses blind you to the truth. Isabella Whitmore is a victim. Skylar Whitmore and Amelia Whitmore are criminals. The evidence proves it. Do your duty. Thomas Brennan was desperate. This is a family tragedy, not a crime. Don't tear this family apart further. Show mercy. The jury deliberated for 4 hours and 17 minutes. I sat in the hallway with Fiona and Patricia and Margaret, waiting. At 4:47 p.m., they called us back. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have your honor. On the count of elder financial abuse, how do you find guilty? On the count of theft in the 1st degree, guilty. On the count of assault in the 2nd degree, guilty. Each word felt like a blow and a relief simultaneously. Schuyler dropped his head into his hands. Amelia stayed stone-faced. Judge Okafor scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later.